Millions of people in real time are starting to figure out that Ripple is the biggest blockchain infrastructure company on the planet, and they have their hands in almost everything. I wanted to go through this clip with Anthony Pompliano and Patrick Bet-David discussing Ripple's acquisitions and why these four companies are so important to their infrastructure as well as XRP holders. So we're going to explore Metaco, standard custody, hidden road, and rail today, but we're also going to listen to this clip of Anthony Pompliano explaining Ripple's goals and mission through these acquisitions. I thought this was a great clip. Let's jump right in, guys. If you get any value, you can hit like or leave a comment down below. Let's go.
One of the things that is interesting to me, not so much about XRP, the coin, but about Ripple, the company, is, they have this kind of engine to generate profit and monetize that XRP. They've started to acquire real companies. So what they did is they bought, I think one of the companies was called Hidden Road, and these are like big acquisitions. These aren't like, $5 acquisitions. These are like $1 billion+ acquisitions that they're doing.
Rob, can you pull up a company's Ripple acquired?
And so what you're starting to see is, again, there's incredible controversy and debate, I think, over is XRP going to be sustainable? Is it something that people are going to use? But what they've started to do is they started to take them. I mean, look, $200 million acquisition, $1.25 billion acquisition, $250 million acquisition, right? And so what they're doing is they're essentially using the monetization of their balance sheet, and they're starting to acquire real companies. XRP. Now, what I will say is we have seen this happen in traditional finance over time. You have a company that has very controversial or maybe unsustainable kind of business model, but they have some access to capital, and they begin to convert that into something else. And, look, the Bitcoin treasury companies, a lot of them had companies that weren't working, and they said, well, why don't I just start to buy Bitcoin? And all of a sudden, they kind of revived their business.
You can't be comparing what some of these failed companies were doing so he's comparing kind of what Ripple is doing with their XRP to use XRP to go out and buy companies and use that value to go out and build a real business. He's kind of comparing this to these companies that kind of were failing, and these companies decided to get into Bitcoin treasuries, and that's what saved the companies. I don't like the comparison here because what Ripple does out here in the crypto space is really on a massive scale, far beyond what most of these companies are even capable of, as well as, I don't have a problem with Ripple using escrowed XRP, selling that, using that to buy companies to add more use cases and infrastructure around XRP, the asset. We need this infrastructure built out if we're all going to be looking at $500,000 or plus XRP. And this is part of that movement and what needs to happen. So I don't like the comparison, but all good. That's why you're here for the opinion.
And so I think that this is very interesting. Now, there's kind of a delineation between XRP and Ripple, but I think that this acquisition stuff, people in the industry, even the people who don't like XRP, I think are saying to themselves, hey, that Hidden Road, that's a real company. Pay $1.25 billion for it, right? Yeah. Okay, you may be able to end up with an entire set of infrastructure there that you can then go and actually build a business with.
What does Hidden Road do?
Hidden Road, if I remember correctly, they do a lot of, it's like market infrastructure. Right. So,
all right, let me give you a better understanding of Hidden Road services. You can go to their website, hiddenroad.com. And right here, it says our services, they're a prime brokerage, clearing, and financing. And so FX and precious metals, digital assets, exchanges, and OTC, synthetic OTC swaps, equities, commodities, digital assets, energy, and rates. For clearing, they do derivatives clearing, futures and options, sponsored access and direct market access. And in the financing sector, derivatives, margin financing, and digital asset margin financing. So it's connecting everything that they're doing in traditional finance, what's been built out for the last 50 years, to this new DeFi, TradFi and DeFi merging. And that is a good example here. Let's get back to this clip.
Again, it goes back to this idea of where value accrues in the crypto industry is really kind of two, and really in finance in general, there's two buckets. You have the retail facing platforms, and then you have institutional facing like infrastructure. And so the retail platforms, that's your Coinbases, Binances, Geminis, Tethers, all those guys. But then you've got this like institutional infrastructure, everything from market making to, here you go. So like a global credit network for institutions, prime brokerage, clearing, financing, right? All this stuff that is very institutional in nature.
Is it like a Pershing? Is that what would it be considered? Is Hidden Road company Ripple acquire like a Pershing company? What is a Hidden Road? Yes, it is. Okay, sounds good. So I got it. I understand it. Okay, I mean, that's a big deal to buy something like that at 1.25 billion. And the guy that's running it, I think his name is Brad. I can't say his last name.
Garlinghouse.
Yeah. He seems like a very intellectual guy. He's involved on I've seen him with the Trump administration, a couple different things with them. But he doesn't just sound like one of these guys that came and created a coin, hey, let's sell a bunch of stuff and then let's go. They're actually creating technology and buying technology. Good for them. So you're optimistic because you hear some people talk about Ripple could replace Swift, possibility of that.
All right, listen, there's a lot of education that still needs to be done. My hat goes off to Patrick Bet-David, bringing experts like Anthony Pompliano onto his show to explain all this. It would be really cool to have somebody that understands fully, maybe somebody from Ripple, like a Monica Long, going on his show and really educating them on what Ripple's doing. But all good. That was a great clip to better understand what regular people are starting to learn about Ripple, XRP, Hidden Road, and the acquisitions. To give you some additional context here, Hidden Road clears $3.5 trillion a year, which is about $10 billion a day. So it is a very real company. A lot of that clearing, they said that they're going to use RLUSD. Obviously, we want to see RLUSD on XRP. Remember, RLUSD is on Ethereum, 90% of it, and the other 10% is on the XRP ledger. If they're going to be using RLUSD for a lot of the clearing through Hidden Road, we want to see that done on the XRP ledger because that is where the value will come from for the transactions. All right, let's play.
We'll use RLUSD as collateral.
There you go.
Then that's essentially enabling the bridging of the digital asset space to TradFi, which is extremely exciting. Also, the XRP ledger will be used as a post-trade for all of Hidden Road's prime brokerage services. We also see that this captive audience of 300 institutional customers is, a really interesting portfolio of customers that will and do need digital asset infrastructure, which these customers will be able to take advantage of our payment and custody solutions as well.
The interesting part here is Hidden Road was connected to 300 other financial institutions, and you probably will have some overlap there on existing Ripple's customers to new Ripple customers. But think about those 300 institutions. Let's just say like 100 of them are brand new companies. Ripple can now go to those 100 other companies and offer other services, right? Because they're already a customer of Hidden Road. Now Ripple can say, hey, do you need any stablecoin solutions? Do you need FX or clearing or something? Like, they can give them anything that they want now in the crypto space, and that's why it's important. The next purchase that Ripple has currently made is Rail for $200 million. They just swallowed up an entire backend layer of global stablecoin infrastructure. It's the quietest, most strategic takeover of modern financial rails we've seen. Let's decode what Rail is and why this is huge. It says, what is Rail? Rail is a financial plumbing company powering stablecoin settlement, virtual accounts, compliance automation, and global fintech rails. It processes 10% of global stablecoin volume. Yes, 10% of the entire stablecoin ecosystem flows through Rail. Let that sink in. So what does it exactly do? Virtual accounts in 180 countries, multi-asset settlement, embedded compliance logic, KYC and AML, know your customer, anti-money laundering, super important for any financial institution, instant fiat on and off ramp, so getting money in and out of the market, end-to-end automation for fintechs and Web3. Basically, Rail is the invisible backbone behind hundreds of fintech platforms. Now, why would Ripple, a blockchain company, be interested in something like this? Because Rail already does what CBDCs, stablecoins, and banks are trying to figure out. It gives Ripple global banking access, settlement logic, institutional grade automation, and immediate infrastructure for RLUSD. It goes on to say that here is the ticker. Ripple's not just building a stablecoin, they're building an operation systems for programmable finance. Think Swift plus Plaid plus Stripe plus USDC, all fused together and settled via XRP and RLUSD. And with Rail, it's already live. Ripple filed a bank charter and a master account here. Let me just pull this up. Ripple filed a bank charter, filed for a master account. RLUSD just launched. OpenPaid plus Amina Bank already supported. BlackRock, IMF, BIS are all shouting, tokenize the world. And now Ripple owns a major piece of the plumbing. Goes on to say that, what does this mean for XRP holders? It says Ripple has complete control over the XRP ledger. Ripple now has complete control over the XRP ledger. They don't really have complete control. Stablecoin RLUSD, the pipes, Rail, the compliance, OpenPaid, Amina, and soon the bank account, right? The community controls the XRP ledger. Amendments get voted on, even stuff that maybe Ripple doesn't want can get passed. Brad Garlinghouse announced that today when he did an interview. I did a video on that if you're interested, but let's get back to this. Don't want to get sidetracked. Bullish consequences for this deal. Massive boost to RLUSD adoption, institutional clients onboarding instantly. XRP becomes the native settlement option for stablecoin flows, and Ripple can be the route for capital flow. Now, I wanted to show you some interesting part here. So my thought was, okay, so this is 10%, right? Who else controls the rest of it? And will Ripple buy another company? So here is that information. Circle controls 18 to 20% of this infrastructure. Fireblocks another 15. Tether is a 15. BVNK has 7%. DLocal, which uses some XRP infrastructure, is 5%. AAA is 5%. Nylos is 4%. Bridge, MoonPay, Conduit, Ivy, MoneyGram, and PaySaxis is 14%. And of course, Ripple with Rail is 10%. Now, interesting enough, Ripple could buy some of these other companies and expand their growth here. This BVNK, there is a rumor that Coinbase and partners are trying to buy them for $2 billion. So there is going to be moves to be made here. And I do think Ripple is going to expand this 10% to try to control maybe 20 or 25% of all of this value. Now, even Paul Barron said how important this is, processes 10% of the $36 billion business-to-business stablecoin payments. Obviously, Scott Bessent, the Treasurer of the United States, has told us that he believes the stablecoin market is going to grow to 2 to 5 trillion over the next few years. Imagine Ripple controlling 10, 15, 20% of all of that infrastructure. That is why this is so important. And then here, of course, Rail, Ripple, Hidden Road, Amina, DBAX, BNY Mellon. And then, of course, a lot of people did comment on this when we did talk about this. Now, standard custody is the next Ripple purchase. Solana is now offered at standard custody. Remember, who owns standard custody is Ripple, your institutional grade digital asset custody. New standard custody announces support for institutional Solana and more. Here is a clip of the person who's currently, at the time, who is in control of standard custody and play.
We should have the mechanisms to make sure that they comply with the law. And to the extent that we're involved with any of those things, we are with Bitcoin or with cryptocurrencies. Part of the reason that people are flooding into our ventures around cryptocurrencies right now is because we're institutional, because our compliance is unquestioned. And criminals don't come to us because they're not going to get an account. But people who are using these things for the right reasons, they're coming to institutional players like us, and they're leaving the places that were a little bit Wild West. And that's the way markets evolve.
And that's the way markets evolve. Just to give you some additional context here, Standard Custody and Trust Company holds a rare New York trust charter, which places Ripple among only a few firms authorized to provide regulated crypto custody in New York. The center of U.S. finance, this acquisition strengthens Ripple's position for future U.S. institutional business, grants credibility, and enables it to offer fully regulated services powered by the creators of XRP Ledger, favoring legal certainty and compliance for tokenized asset flow. So that is a very big deal out here in the space. Chad Steingreiber also says the reason standard custody is important, Ripple gained standard custody New York charter, adding to its collection of licenses, which Ripple has a ton of all over the world. They're going to be the world's infrastructure for payments. They need to have all of these licenses in all of these jurisdictions. And they also points out that U.S. money transmitter license and major payment institution or MPI license in Singapore. And then standard custody, here is their website if you're interested to take a look at this, your institutional grade digital asset custody solution. And so you have this, you have Ripple custody, you have Metaco, you have so many access to different things. And then remember a few years ago, Ripple did purchase Metaco. I believe they purchased Metaco for a handful of reasons. One of the biggest reasons was look at these partnerships. Top tier banks and institutional clients. Just to give you some additional context here real quickly, Metaco is a Switzerland-based ledger and institutional digital asset custody, leader. Ripple acquired Metaco for $250 million to offer secure and scalable custody solutions for a range of digital assets, from cryptocurrencies to tokenized securities. You see where we're going here? Custody is foundational for regulatory compliance, large institutional adoption, and asset interoperability, allowing Ripple to serve banks, fintechs, managing digital wealth securely. And so just to show you, these connections here are pretty insane. You have Citibank, BNP Paribas, Societe Generale Forge, my favorite bank to say, DZ Bank. This is a big bank in Germany, I believe. Deca Bank, VP Bank, HSBC, BBVA Switzerland, DBS Digital Exchange, Union Bank in the Philippines. And then asset managers and custodians here, you have Zodiac Custody, ArcX, Levelfield, BCP Group, VP Bank. I just want to say a lot of things are happening right here on the XRP Ledger and through these acquisitions. The real question is, Who does Ripple buy next? And what other pieces of the puzzle should we be looking at, and how is that going to impact us? I know this video, there's a lot of information, guys, but I want you to understand that Ripple is in fact the largest blockchain infrastructure company on the planet. And if you are a central bank, and if you are a financial market infrastructure, or you're in control of that, and you are looking to update your rails to real-time gross settlement, blockchain infrastructure, one of the conversations that you are going to have is, do we talk to Ripple? Or we need to get Ripple on the phone to discuss how we move forward. Ripple is a vital part of all of this infrastructure moving forward. And this is why I so firmly believe in XRP's future, because you don't see these level of connections with any other blockchain company. Sure, you have some, but it doesn't even come close to what Ripple can offer here to the world. And you also have now Citi announcing that they're going to be launching their own custody solution in 2026. People are speculating, does this have anything to do with Ripple or Metaco or anything like that? 1.7 trillion. Citibank plans to launch crypto custody services in 2026. Back in 2023, Citibank announced a partnership with Metaco, and Ripple Labs bought Metaco. So I don't know, guys. You tell me what you think here. There's no definitive proof one way or another. Just wanted to throw the speculation out to you. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you got anything out of it, please like, share, all of that good stuff. Thank you so much. Peace.